still find that lovely. Good morning. So much has been shifting in the past few days, the past weeks, as I've been feeling the fault lines in all of our living rooms, those shifting sands. I've been thinking about the stories of the Hebrew Bible, and especially the stories of Exodus. Which Exodus, you might know, it begins with this incredible story of liberation after 400 years of slavery. 400 years, many generations. No one knew anything except for slavery. In the beginning of Exodus, all of those people are set free. Except that the first step of freedom isn't exactly what they had in mind. See, after Egypt, Moses, their leader, he brings them and their children and their animals into the wilderness. That is the desert. And so the people, they're in their first moments of freedom, they're like, what sort of freedom is this? Will there be enough food? Will there be enough water? I mean, at least in Egypt, we knew where our next meal would come from. And Moses was like, all right, good point. So he and God set up some special senior hours shopping time. I mean, they dropped some magic bread from the sky and the people were okay for a minute. But then Moses says to the people, I gotta go up this mountain so I can convene with this God who made all this freedom possible, so be right back. Which is when the people started to really freak out. See, they weren't so sure about this whole invisible God business. Every God that they had ever known came in the form of something they could touch, something they could hold with their hands, something they could feel and see. And so they asked Moses's brother, Aaron, who had stayed behind, to make them something more solid. They said, even if it isn't the whole truth, at least it would be something that they could know for sure. And so Aaron says, okay. And the people were relieved. But then Moses comes down the mountain and he's like furious. But Aaron was all, come on, Moses, you know how people are. They just can't deal with this much uncertainty. They need something more solid. Too much is out of their control. Too much has changed. This scene plays out over and over in the Hebrew Bible as the people, they end up wandering the desert for 40 years. 40 years, that is not a number they knew going in. They just were wandering and waiting and trying not to irritate each other too much, trying to keep the faith that the next right thing would emerge. We are not the Hebrew people. We have not suddenly left behind all the things that we've ever known. And yet in the past few weeks, so much has changed. So much of our lives have been disrupted. Our usual habits, our ways of making sense of things, people that we turn to for comfort or clarity, their bodies, if not their faces, are so far away. It is an unprecedented moment. Even the elders among you, you haven't seen a moment like this in your lifetimes. So much is uncertain. So much is out of our control. And like Aaron said to Moses, this is not something that humans are built for. Human brains don't take well to uncertainty, to fault lines suddenly shifting. Our brains like clarity, closure, resolution. I mean, I just think about how often, maybe you understand how often in the past few days, I found myself just obsessively refreshing NPR or the New York Times, just trying to see if maybe they had some information. I would scroll social media, listen to podcasts. I reach out to friends who are older than I am, talk to friends who are younger than I am, just looking for that sense of clarity. Like, what is going to happen? Or really, like, what even is happening, right? I mean, how long is this going to go on? Will we be in the desert for 40 years? Uncertainty makes it hard to plan. And worse, it makes us doubt our plans from the past. I mean, what good were all those plans anyway? Uncertainty makes us doubt ourselves and our world. And uncertainty can bring up a lot of grief for all that we had planned, all that we had hoped for, all that is being disrupted. Grief for lost time and fear at the worst case scenarios, which is often what is at the heart of our struggles with uncertainty, because our brains do want that resolution. So we just go ahead and resolve that uncertainty by trading it for certainty. That is our certainty that the worst is true. We're sure of it. But the truth is, in this time, we don't know. We really don't know, and there is no way to know. And this is the gift. When we can stay here fully in the unknowing, when we can look not to more solidity, not look for that God that we could touch, but instead live in the mystery, in the wandering, in the holy that is intangible. When we trust more in the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold us in the web of life, then here we can know the real blessing in the midst of this unrest. The hard-won blessing that comes from surrendering ourselves to all that is out of our control, so that we can do what we can and then let the rest go. This is the blessing of humility and the blessing of interdependence. Day by day and hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute, this is how we will make our journey through this wilderness together. We will do what we can and let the rest go.
I don't know about you, but this week has been a week where the stories have seemed to pile up. The stories of jobs being lost. The stories of diagnoses confirmed and suspected. The stories of trips canceled, of the loss of loved ones, and the inability to be there, to be physically present. It's been a week in which the stories of distance, of what was once blocks away from friends and family, seem like foreign countries. Stories of questioning what is going to happen, questioning and conflicting reports about what is happening, stories about what our economy will look like after this, stories of the circus act of parenting children while working at home. In times of anxiety or rapid change, when normal doesn't seem to mean much anymore, it can be easy to feel powerless, numb, scattered, overwhelmed, consumed by big emotions, fear, anger, even despair. I know I felt many of these this past week. And as these anxieties rise up and begin to inhabit our bodies, our hearts, and our minds, as we become neighbors or roommates to fear, it can make our experience of life feel without hope. When we live in a space of deep anxiety, it can feel like the problems of the world are too big, and we are too small to do anything about it. And when we have that feeling, we become disconnected from our agency, disconnected from our power, disconnected from our ability to exert control over our lives. Not total control, of course, but a meaningful level. So I want to invite you into a moment of meditation. So I invite you to put your feet firmly on the floor, to feel the support of the ground on your body. Maybe take a deep breath. Maybe even looking around the room. This can help us orient us in time and space. I invite you to imagine that you're sitting in a wide circle, that you are at the center of this circle. Everything within this circle you can control. Your attitude is in this circle. How much news you watch, how much time you spend on social media, how you are practicing social distancing, how you're moving your body, the phone calls you make, the texts you send, the reach outs that you offer. All of these are within this circle. What is within your circle of control? Now imagine that there's a wider circle that goes beyond your smaller circle to encompass everything that is outside of your control. Now, having this smaller circle reminds us of our power, that even in the chaos, that there are choices and influence, that we are not helpless. It can help shift our experiences of this moment. But it's also important to acknowledge all that lives outside of that circle, in that larger circle of what we cannot control. We may wish we could control it, but we can't. What is in that outside circle? The actions of other people. How long this crisis will last. The amount of food and supplies at the store. How others are reacting. If others are following the rules of social distancing. The various movements of the global economy. Think for a moment. What is outside your circle of control? It's in moments like these that we come face to face with the truth that most of our life, most of what impacts our life is in that second large circle. It's outside of our circle of control, but not everything. Naming what we can control brings us close in to real pain. The pain of our fellow human beings, the pain of our world, the pain of our limitations. And we name all that we cannot control, not so we can check it off a list and say, well, I don't have to care about that because I cannot control it. We name this to remind ourselves to loosen our grip upon it, giving up our responsibility for that which we cannot control, which invites us to touch then a deeper freedom. We loosen our grip on what we cannot control, so our hands can come down firmly to touch what we can. We feel then our energy directed towards all that we can change. I invite you to keep breathing, keep releasing, and welcoming whatever arises. I'm going to play now a short video. It is a song that Christopher Lamb sings together. It's called Loosen, Loosen. It's written by a Jewish singer-songwriter after the Tree of Life shooting in Pennsylvania. It's an opportunity to release to something greater what we cannot control. It has some kind of funky graphics.